Nucleic acids. Nucleic acids, those being deoxyribonucleic acid and ribonucleic acid, or as they're more commonly known, DNA and RNA for short, are chemicals which hold genetic information, and they can be found in all living things. Like most things we ingest, nucleic acid goes in through the mouth. However, aside from mechanical digestion, nucleic acids aren't really digested by enzymes until they reach the small intestine. There, they run into the aptly named DNAs and RNAs, which are enzymes produced primarily by the pancreas. Their full forms are deoxyribonuclease and ribonuclease. These enzymes convert the complex nucleic acids into many nucleotides. Once converted into nucleotides, the enzyme nucleotidase, cool name, can do the job of converting the nucleotides into their individual components. These components include a nitrogenous base, or cytosine, guanine, adenine, or thymine, a ribose sugar, and a phosphate group, which make up the backbone, and the sugars from this process can then enter the bloodstream and act as a provider for energy, while the nitrogenous bases and phosphate groups can be used as building blocks for new DNA in our bodies.
Protein digestion begins at the mouth, where the protein will be mechanically broken down by chewing your food into smaller particles. This will increase the surface area, which speeds up the mechanical breakdown later in the digestion process. After swallowing the protein, it reaches the stomach, where it will undergo chemical digestion. The mucous lining of the stomach contains inner gastric glands which produce gastric juices. One of the components of gastric juices is that it's composed of hydrochloric acid and an enzyme called pepsin. The low pH of hydrochloric acid activates pepsinogen into its active form of pepsin. Pepsin will break down the protein into a peptide, where it will be passed through the stomach and into the small intestine. The small intestine is where the majority of chemical digestion occurs. The pancreas secretes pancreatic trypsin and chymotrypsin into the small intestine to further digest peptides. Once the peptides are broken down into single amino acids, they are released into the bloodstream through the absorption of the microvilli in the walls of your small intestine. Your blood will take these amino acids to other cells in your body that will aid in repairing tissues and building muscle. The fatty acid or lipid will begin being mechanically digested at the mouth. Lipase, an enzyme in your mouth, will help to break down these fats. Once swallowed, the fatty acid will travel down your esophagus and into your stomach. The fatty acid continues to be mechanically digested in your mouth. Gastric lipase and lingual lipase play a minor role in the breakdown of fatty acids in your stomach. It is not until the small intestine does the fatty acid begin to be mechanically broken down. Bile, which is made up in the liver but stored in the gallbladder, is released into the duodenum, the first section of your small intestine. The large fat droplets from your stomach are broken down by the bile salts. The pancreas secretes pancreatic lipase into the small intestine to further undergo the breakdown of the fatty acid. The next process of digestion of the fatty acid is to be absorbed into the bloodstream. Bile salts accumulate around the fatty acid droplet to form a structure called micelles. Micelles help the fat to get close enough to the microvilli so that it can be absorbed into the bloodstream to support body energy and cell growth.
Carbs. Carbohydrates initially enter the body, like most things, through the mouth. This is where they first begin the digestive process. In the mouth, the teeth break down the carbohydrates and flatten them, crushing them up, increasing the surface area. This is extremely important, as it allows enzymes to work on more of the carbohydrate at once. In the mouth, there's an enzyme called salivary amylase, which is secreted by our salivary glands. This is going to begin breaking down the starches into a sugar called maltose. But before the carbohydrates can be completely converted, the food, or as we can now call it, chyme, is passed down the esophagus into the stomach. Once in the stomach, the chyme is further smashed and broken into smaller pieces, again helping increase the surface area by the strong stomach muscles, where it is also chemically broken down by the acidity. After its acid bath in the stomach, the chyme moves to the small intestine through the pyloric valve. The small intestine is going to convert the remaining carbs into maltose, again using amylase. After it's been converted into maltose, which is just the disaccharide version of glucose, it can be broken down by maltase into its single version, glucose. This glucose can either directly enter the bloodstream or be converted into glycogen, which is actually just a long chain of glucose that can be stored for later use in the liver.